Hello everybody, welcome to another video, and today I'm joined by my old friend Phil.
Hello.
And we're here to do something a bit different. Going to be talking and reminiscing about our band days together.
Reminiscing, is that what we're going to call it?
Yes. So Phil and myself played in bands through the years, didn't we?
Yeah, we had a long and varied musical history together.
Yeah, yeah. The first band we were ever in was at college, was at university. We would have started probably in about 92?
No, I think it was the year before that, wasn't it? It was 91.
Okay, 91. And how it happened was, well, I mean, you can tell the story. I mean, Phil is a guitarist and a singer, and at the time an aspiring songwriter.
Yeah, I mean, I've been writing songs since I was 14. Mm-hmm. So by that time I'd been 20. Mm-hmm. And I was basically prodded you into being in a band with me.
Yeah, we were sharing a house together, and I'd sort of bullshitted Phil a little bit that I could play the drums. I sort of could play them a little bit, but I was making out that I could play them more than I could. And Phil just came into my room one day and said, "Do you want to be in a band? Do you want to be in my band? Do you want to be the drummer?" And I kind of went, all right. And we had no drum kit, we had no drumsticks. And the first rehearsal, we went round trying to find
disaster.
Well, we went round trying to find some tree branches to use as drumsticks.
Yeah, with tree branches and drumsticks, and then we had an upturned, as I remember it, an upturned dustbin, like plastic dustbin, as one of the drums. Yeah. And there was a bucket, maybe.
Yeah.
As the other one.
Yeah. So we started pretty basic, but within 6 months of that first rehearsal, we were sort of up and running. We were playing gigs. We had a band together, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, we got Steve on board, didn't we? I'd played with Steve. I'd written the music for this terrible musical.
Oh, I'd forgotten
at
that.
University.
Right.
And then Steve played. I got Steve in to come play the guitar on those songs, and we toured the Northwest with that musical.
Yeah, Steve was an older guy. I mean, we were in our kind of very early 20s at this point. We were in our last year at university, and Steve was about 10 years older than us, wasn't he? Yeah. And he'd been in a band that had sort of, they got a record deal.
They got a deal, didn't they? And then they released a single.
Yeah.
And I think they had an album as well.
He was on a compilation album of kind of Humberside bands, I think, I seem to remember. So Steve had been around the block. He was quite different, and he was from the kind of new wave era. He was kind of from the kind of Slim Jim Ty era. So he was into all that stuff, you know, Elvis Costello and Blondie. Phil was mainly into sort of metal and rock, and I was kind of I was into classic rock, the Beatles and stuff like that. So from the get-go, we were fairly kind of, I say, sort of disparate is a negative way of saying it, and perhaps diverse.
We were quite diverse. We had quite diverse influences, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Because it was like pop, rock, and weird pop.
Yeah, I mean, Phil, we went down to this music studio place where you could rehearse. It was like a real crapper, wasn't it?
It really was.
Fag ends on the carpet and horrible things. And Phil just said, "Well, let's just play these songs," and he just threw some songs at me. And we were doing things like Hard to Handle, but it was the Black Crowes.
Yeah, it wasn't the Otis Redding version, was it?
No,
because you
were
stretch.
No, but the Black Crowes version, it had this drum beat. It was like dish, 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 kind of drum beat, and I had still only just learned to play the kind of dish, 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 dish. Yeah. So doing this dish, 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 dish.
Yeah, that offbeat.
That was a big step.
It was. I remember the hours and hours of you learning.
Yeah, just going dish, 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 dish. Just trying to get it in. And then we were doing You Really Got Me by the Kinks.
That's quite a good version of You Really Got Me.
Yeah. And we did 20th Century Boy. And we got a young lad in called Jamie on sax, and he played some good smoking sax on that. Anyway, so to cut a long story short, we sort of got this band together at university, and we played a couple of quite nice big outdoor gigs. Yeah. What's your memory of that?
Of the outdoor gigs?
Yeah, we did 2 outdoor gigs at the end of the term.
It was the end of our university career, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The third year.
Yeah.
So I just felt free. When we were doing this band, I just felt like we arrived when we did the one at Pendle College. Yeah. Because it was a huge stage.
It was like a marquee kind of thing.
It was like a proper festival stage.
And they had a smoke machine, didn't they?
Yeah, and it was the sunniest day.
Yeah. And the first song we played was Dizzy.
That's
by the Wonder Stuff with Big Reeves, and it had this drum beat. It had that kind of shuffly drum beat, like
what we used to call the indie drum beat.
Yeah, the indie drum beat. And I practiced this in rehearsal, and I thought I'd got it. And we came on stage, the opening song, and I picked up my drumsticks and tried to go into this kind of shuffly thing, and what came out just did not resemble. It was just a sort of stiff. I lost all the syncopation, everything. It was like, oh my god. But then it sort of got better. The problem was that we were leaving college and we went and moved to Leeds, and we left the rest of the band behind us. So we went from a situation where we felt like we'd really got it together, and then all of a sudden we were like, oh god, we've got no band now. We've got nowhere to rehearse. We're living in a new place. Yeah. I haven't got any drums. I haven't got a drum kit. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, we moved to Leeds and we had to get a band together. And my main memory then is of probably about, I don't know, 6 months driving around looking for a bass player.
The endless search everyone has for bass players in bands.
Just traipsing around. I mean, Leeds is quite a big place, and we went all around, didn't we?
Yeah, every shop window we could possibly find, because those were the days where people put. That was the only way you could get in contact with musicians, was either through the free ads papers or in music shop, on notice boards or in windows on music shops.
That's right, yeah.
So we spent hours and hours trudging around, taking numbers down.
Yeah. We did eventually find someone, a guy called Paul. And Paul was, again, he was a bit different. He was a bit grungy. He had the big long hair, and he was into things like Pearl Jam. And
he introduced me to a lot of heavy rock.
Yeah, he was into the kind of contemporary 90s scene. So he was into things like the Chili Peppers and Soundgarden and stuff like that. And you started getting quite into all that, didn't you? Yeah. And Phil was, I think you were exploring at that point. You were getting into things like Black Sabbath, weren't you?
Yeah. Wasn't that also the time that dance music started?
Yeah, well...
Happening, was that a bit later?
No, dance music was happening by
then. I was living in that garden flat, and I had Left Field and Soundgarden kind of more or less on constant repeat on the record player.
Yeah. And then we got a couple of girl singers in, which sounds a bit sexist, a couple of girl singers, but one of them, women singers, and one of them, Jackie, she actually then became a proper member of the band, and we had a thing where Phil...
co-singer.
A co-singer, so we had a male voice and a female voice. And we started writing songs, or you and Steve really were the writers, weren't you?
Yeah, we wrote some proper opuses that made the band. We should just sit and just put stuff together with each other and like play off each other.
But a really distinct memory, the first time, I think you hired a 4-track from somewhere, or an 8-track or something, and we took it down to the music studio where we recorded, and you did a double-track vocal for the song Mr. Rain Man.
That's right, yeah.
Which is one of your songs, and the first time I heard your double-tracked voice on that machine was one of the most exciting experiences. It was like, it sounds like a record. But it was the first time I'd heard something. I thought, oh wow, okay, we're going to start to move now into actually being a band and sounding like a band. And we sort of hit the ground running. We got the first gig we played in Leeds was in a pub called the Hyde Park pub, which is a well-known student pub, kind of slap bang in the heartland of Leeds.
That was probably one of the best gigs we ever played.
Yeah.
It was so well received.
It was, and we'd rehearsed, but we didn't really think it was going to go down quite as well as it did. But it was just a fantastic gig. And you have to remember, this is the era of, well, we started before the Britpop thing happened. Britpop broke in kind of 93, 94.
We were just before, weren't we?
So we started heavily gigging around Leeds, and we played the Fenton a lot of times. I didn't know this at the time, but the Fenton was a really legendary British venue. It's where Gang of Four started playing back in the late 70s, and I think bands like the Pop Group we were talking about.
There was. It wasn't like that when we were there, though, was it? It was kind of. It was just more of just a room above a pub when we were there.
But it was covered. It was covered in posters though of all these bands that had played there. So we didn't realise it at the time. We were sort of playing a fairly historic, punk venue, I suppose. And the Fenton was a good place. I remember there was a couple of gigs there where, it was a small room, so it didn't take much to fill it.
Yeah.
And we had quite a lot of friends in Leeds. There was lots of different. We moved in different circles a little bit because of work and so on. But there was one particular gig I remember where it seemed like the whole place was packed, and we kind of knew everybody, and it was just one of those great kind of coming together.
It was. Yeah, I mean that's probably apart from the Hyde Park gig, that's probably the best best gig we ever played, because it just felt like people were there to actually listen, you know, to actually see what we were doing rather than just being in the, you know, often gigs are just, people are just in the pub.
And then there was another venue, another famous venue we played called the Duchess, which people will have heard of, people in the UK will have heard of this. No, it was run by some, was it an Irish family who ran it? I can't remember, but it was a place that, you know, bands had played there, all sorts of bands, I don't know who, but I mean, you know, I think big bands had played there. But you had to
it was a kind of toilet venue on the gig circuit, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Oh, we played a pub in Bradford called the World's End.
Oh God, it was like the World's End as well, wasn't it?
And that always sticks in my mind because I had my drums set up next to it was like a pantry. No, it was the door to a walk-in freezer. And the person who kind of was running the pub, she spent all night squeezing behind me, getting frozen chickens out of this walk-in thing, and then squeezing past me again. So I kept getting like curled chicken on the back of my neck as I was playing. And that was the pub where they didn't even turn the jukebox off as we were playing.
Oh God! That's right.
And then some guy came up to us at the end and said, what did he ask for? He asked for something. He came up, we just kind of played our
request.
Yeah, he came up and said, I think it was Motorhead, I think he wanted
Right.
Black Sabbath or something. He just came up and said, do you know any Motorhead songs? And we were like, no.
No,
leave us alone.
Get me out of here. Was that place where we had that to do with, that was in Leeds somewhere, where we had that to do with the guy who said he'd pay us,
right.
And then because no one turned up. I think that was a big fat lesson about audience building, certainly for me.
He said what?
He said he'd pay us.
Right.
I think he said he'd pay us 30 quid.
Yeah.
But then, because about 3 people turned up, he said, well, I can't pay you. We had a big argument with me and Steve. Steve was really good, actually. Steve said, but you've agreed to this in contract, you've agreed to this.
So what was the outcome?
I think he gave us half the money or something in the end.
Remember that strange bloke who got in touch with me and said he wanted to manage us?
Oh, yeah.
It was so funny, this bloke got in touch and he tried to make out that he was a proper manager. I don't know how, I think he'd seen us play somewhere and he got in touch with me and said, I'm this manager and I'd like to manage you, blah blah blah. He left a message and I phoned him back and this woman answered the phone and went, hello? And I kind of said, oh, hello, is that this guy, whatever his name is?
Such a manager.
E.G. Management or something.
Yeah, didn't he have a company name as well?
Yeah.
Just his mum's phone number.
Yeah, and it was just his mum on the phone and she went, oh, it's Gareth you want? Gareth! And then I heard these footsteps coming down the stairs, you know, and then this kid comes on the phone, hello? And I was like, oh, goodness sake.
You're not a manager, are you?
No.
You've got pretensions, you've got dreams.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you met all sorts of people on that kind of circuit. The thing is, one big thing that always sticks in my mind is other bands, you know, you would end up supporting. We didn't support them, but we did see Embrace, didn't we?
We did see Embrace.
And
what was that? Was at the Fenton, wasn't it?
It was at the Fenton. It was before they got a record deal. And if you know Embrace, I mean, maybe the North Americans won't know Embrace, I'm not sure, but...
I think they did repackage themselves quite recently to try and break North America, didn't they? They all went all kind of...
Yeah.
Kind of strange and gothy.
They were a big band, but we saw them before they got their record deal, and we just thought that...
they were rubbish.
Well, the guy was a complete knob, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He stopped the gig at one point and pointed to the back and went, you over there, you, stop talking when we're playing our music. And we looked at each other and went, is he being serious? And he absolutely was.
No, I thought, my initial thought was, surely this is like an ironic Iggy Pop style
but
thing.
No, he was absolutely genuine. I mean, this is a pub gig, you know, and he was literally trying to berate the audience for talking during one of the songs. So we walked out of there and kind of went, well, they'll never bloody make it.
Yeah.
And then about 6 months later, we were just walking around and we started seeing these posters on the wall for Embrace everywhere, and then we started looking and we gradually realised that these posters were like record company posters.
Yeah.
And we looked at each other and went, oh, don't tell me.
Actual marketing campaign.
Don't tell me Embrace have got a bloody record deal. And within about a year, they were playing bloody arenas, you know. We could never decide on band names, and we changed our names. We were Bendigo Bubble originally.
Oh God, there was Bendigo Bubble, which was a beer, wasn't it? An Australian beer on the wall of the...
Yeah, it came from a beer mat that we saw on the wall of a pub in Lancaster. Then we changed to Cunning Plan, which is a terrible name. But Steve, this guy, this kind of older guy, he kept coming out with the worst possible
Goldhagen.
Yeah, he wanted to call the band Goldhagen.
Goldhagen.
But the worst name he came up with was Custard's Last Stand. And he was
worse than Black.
And he was really intent on it. But like, I really think Custard's Last Stand. You know, and this is the era of like Pulp, Blur, Oasis, like, yeah, and Custard last. So we sort of put our foot down. We said, no, Steve, we're not
being called that.
And we ended up calling the band Junkfuel, and that was the name of an album by a band called Fret Blanket, who I still don't know anything about. I think they were a Leeds band.
I think they're kind of noisy Leeds band, aren't they?
Yeah,
it was just big at the time.
I think they were. It was a poster on the rehearsal, on the wall of the rehearsal studio that we used.
It was either an EP or an LP name, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it just said Junkfuel, all one word, and we looked at it, and for some reason, that name did seem to kind of chime with what we were doing somehow.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably because it was. I mean, fuel's a great thing to have in your name anyway, isn't it?
Fuel.
Junk. But junk was like, because it's a bit like a junk shop, our music, because it's all.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But my memory is that the frustration started to creep in. We started to look at each other and say, how do we actually start to get an audience? How do we start to actually build an audience?
Market ourselves.
Yeah, and
I think that's probably why, in the end, why the band didn't last.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't find a way to. We didn't really have a niche anywhere. We had each song was a different niche.
Yeah. So our bass player had a baby, and immediately he almost immediately adopted this slightly higher than thou attitude. It was always instantly overnight. It seemed he would come to rehearsals with more of a kind of attitude of like, oh well, this is just a bit of a joke, and
it's just a bit of a laugh. I'm just in a band for a laugh.
Yeah, and it was like, well, 3 days before it seemed like he was with us going, we want to be rock stars, and then all of a sudden he was like, well, okay, I've got a baby now, and one day you'll understand that this rock star game isn't anything to be serious about. We sort of hatched an idea that we could ditch the band and become a bit like Daft Punk or the Chemical Brothers. We thought, let's just get a sampler and just go down that.
Yeah.
And you did get a sampler. This was after the band sort of broke
up. I never really understood how you did it.
I went off and joined at least 2 other bands, completely different people, and got into it.
I think I just had enough.
Yeah, I think Philip just retired.
For the time being.
So then, I think about 5 years went by, and I'm not sure what prompted me to do it, but I think my band had come to an end. And Phil had moved to a different city. He was now living in Sheffield, which is where we are here today, and I was still in Leeds. And it was going to be the most impractical idea ever. I just put the phone up and said, let's just get a band together again. Yeah, we spent about a year just playing. It was like a kind of White Stripes kind of thing. It was just drums, me on drums, and you on guitar.
And vocals.
And we just did this quite sort of brutal, hard smashing, quite wild sounding stuff, wasn't it? It was nothing like we'd done before.
It was like a kind of, I suppose it was just a bit of a release, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For us, because neither of us were doing anything musically.
No. Anyway, so we formed this other band in Sheffield, and what was that band called?
Well, it became Holy Fools.
Holy Fools.
Which I thought was a great band.
Which is a good name. Yeah, so we did a few gigs in that band, but unfortunately history sort of repeated itself. Like I was saying before, where Paul had a baby, and that was the end of that band. This time it was me. But then the thing is, remarkably, I've just realised now that wasn't the end of the story, because since then we've written songs again, haven't we?
Yeah, we must have like an album's worth of songs.
Oh yeah, easily. I think we should wrap up now and just say, it was a
ride.
It was a ride.
Ups and downs.
Ups and downs, a few ups, and a few sideways manoeuvres. But like I said, I'm just happy that we did it, and who knows, one day we might do it again. No, in fact, I've been playing in a band for the last couple of years, just a kind of local band, doing cover versions, and I've got a nice new drum kit again. So once you start, it is difficult to stop.
Yeah, it's kind of addictive, isn't it?
But yeah. Anyway, so thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, leave some comments below, and we'll say tatty bye.
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 Let me light your candle, cause mama, I'm sure all the hand and I just around.